The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
Welcome back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my favorite panel, Dr. Mark Bound and Dr. Scott Gershwer. Today we will be answering listener emails, and we do have a question. It's a question many people have asked. We're going to talk about the government shutdown, which is just about 14 hours old or so. What does it mean? Who is to blame, and what are the consequences? And I do want to point out to everyone that the Democrats have no power. They do not have any of the three branches of government. They're not in control of any of them. And the Republicans can say all they want. Oh, the Democrats in the Senate, they didn't give us the 7 votes or whatever it was. I don't see anything stopping the Republicans from saying, well, we don't really need a filibuster. All we need is a simple majority, and all we need is 51 votes, and we can vote to fund the government ourselves. And they could talk to Mike Johnson, get him to agree, for instance, on the 29th or the 30th, and they could have done this themselves. I don't believe they needed Democrats. Trump had said what an advantage it was to have the government closed. He could do all sorts of stuff that the Democrats wouldn't like that would be permanent and irreversible. So I do think that Trump didn't want to talk to the Democrats. He told Mike Johnson not to talk to the Democrats, told him not to negotiate. So this has nothing to do with Democrats. This has to do with Republicans trying to stop the Epstein files from being released by halting the seating of the new Arizona elected congresswoman. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. She's replacing her father. She would be the 218th vote. Mike Johnson has refused to swear her in and seat her for some ridiculous reason, although he's had no trouble seating other people who are Republicans, but he won't seat her, of course. And Mike Johnson sent everybody home from the House, and they weren't coming back until after the vote to shut the government down. After the time elapsed to shut the government down, so there wouldn't be any more negotiating, any more anything. And of course, the House is the one that has the money and releases the money. So there was never any intention, in my view, on the Republicans' part to fund the government. And of course, they're going to blame the Democrats and say, oh, we just wanted to give the American people their SNAP, and we just wanted to give the American people their health care. And the Democrats wanted to give health care to all these illegal immigrants, which is not true. And according to Trump's numbers, something like 20 million illegal immigrants were getting healthcare benefits, which is not true. No one who is not documented is allowed to have any federal benefits. And given Trump's deportation numbers, there would have to be an incoming number of about 9 million people, I think, total, since he took office, of illegal or undocumented immigrants, for those numbers of 20 million to even to be realistic, because there are 22 million people who do use Medicaid, for example. So their numbers, the Republicans' numbers, don't even add up. They're hoping that the American public will not notice. So, Mark, Scott?
Yeah. So I'll throw something out there just to get on the, getting us on track of who this is, who's doing this, who's to blame, I guess was the question. I don't know if it's who to blame. Mike Johnson, the owner of the most punchable face in the United States of America, if not the world, was apparently on some kind of blog post thing, one of these crazy things that we do today, talking to a friend of his, and this is what he said to the gentleman, whose name is Moon, apparently, because I'm going to say his name in a second. Chuck Schumer, very stupidly, Moon, just walked right into that trap. He handed President Trump the keys to the kingdom. That is the Speaker of the House who said that. So it is clear, it should be clear to everybody that they wanted this shutdown. Russ Vought wants to fire millions of government workers. The Republicans have finally found a way to get the small government they've always wanted. And woe is the American people when they find out what having a small government means to them, because we are not going to know a whole lot of stuff that's going on. Our food can be tainted and we'll never know. We can pick up diseases from one another and never learn about it. There won't be any testing. We know from ADP, here's another example. We know from ADP that we lost 32,000 jobs. I'm sorry, I should put it this way. 32,000 more people filed for unemployment in the month of September than had been thought. We were expected to add 45,000 jobs. We lost 32,000 jobs. The worst jobs president of all time continues to wreak havoc on the American worker. But you can expect on Friday, when the BLS report was supposed to come out, that the BLS report probably won't even come out. Maybe it will. Maybe they've already done the work. They do it in the first 2 weeks of the month, which is why it's always being revised. So the data may be there, and somebody may hang around long enough to put it out there. But if we get another COVID, and COVID is going around now, I know from teaching college live in person that over the last couple of weeks I've lost a lot of students to COVID. They bring in notes that they had COVID. That's going around. We're not going to ever test again, because when you test, you find out things that the president doesn't want us to know. We're not going to know about hurricanes and all kinds of stuff. I mean, there is a purpose for government, and I'm not a big government guy, but we had this like obsessional thing when I was in business back in the early 2000s of right sizing. We need to right size the government like we need to right size all our corporations. And right now we are going to be way under what we need to run the government with any kind of competence at all. And it may be that they're going to follow through on their plan once they fire all these workers to hire Trump loyalists instead of people who are deep state government employees who don't care about politics and are lifers in the business that they were in, the agency that they were in, replaced by political hires, political hacks who are only loyal to the president and only this president. We are headed to a bad place. But this was 100% manufactured by the Republicans for the purpose of stripping government down to the studs.
And I think the interesting thing I took out of this, there was some polls that were done under this. Now, first of all, you're going to get two sides to this. Some people are going to say, the Democrats are going to get blamed, and some are going to say the Republicans. But the bottom line is the buck stops at the president's desk. He could have averted this, but he did not. That was his choice. And I think I was interested by the poll numbers. Now, pre-shutdown, in 2013, before we had the shutdown in 2013, 57% of Americans, this is from the polls, said compromise. They did not want to shut down. And only 33% said stand your ground on principle. So there was a large number that said, listen, compromise, just keep the government open. Let's do it. In 2025, that changed from 50% said to compromise, 49% said stand your ground. Now, normally, the ones that say compromise in the past, now this is what Democrats wanted pre-shutdown. In 2013, Democrats, 76% said compromise. Only 18% said stand on principle. In 2025, compromise, 52%, stand on principle, 47%. That's almost a 30% increase in stand on your principles. So that number narrowing isn't the Republicans talking about standing on principle and not compromising. That's basically the Democrats saying, enough of the compromise, stand on principle. And that speaks volumes because, in the past, everybody, we've all acknowledged it. Democrats have always been the one to buckle under. And what you're seeing in these polls here is that the Democratic electorate, the Democrats in the electorate are basically saying, no, enough of that. That's never worked. It's never benefited us. We want to stand on the principle. And if the principle you're standing on is healthcare, fine, stand on that. So I think that was an interesting dynamic looking at the polls and how that shifted. Because, again, I was watching Harry Enton on CNN, who was very good at these numbers. He was surprised by the fact that it went from 33% stand on principle in 13 to 49%, a 16-point increase, stand on principle. And that increase came directly from the Democrats. Scott may be very well right as to why this shutdown happened. I don't see it as a trap. We will have to see in 2026 how much accountability the Democrat or the Republicans are going to take for it, or even the Democrats. We're really not sure, because they're all going to be listening to their own little talking heads who are going to tell them who was responsible and why they were responsible. But I think if you really look at the history of this, there was no discussions until the day before the shutdown. So there was no intention in my mind to be able to reach some sort of compromise. The other thing that we got to look at is that there's still that senator that congresswoman that Brooklyn mentioned has not been sworn in yet. If she was sworn in, guess what gets released? The Epstein files. Gee, we want to keep her out of there as long as we possibly can. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on here that has nothing to do with the shutdown. Trump saying, well, hey, this gives me an opportunity to fire a whole bunch of people in the federal government. We'll see how that goes. Of course, that'll eventually have to come before the Supreme Court. It'll be challenged, just like everything else that he does is challenged. You got to ask yourself, who does this benefit? I think that's really the question that the American populace has to ask itself. Who benefits from this shutdown? Because if you're a Republican, regular constituent Republican, and you think you benefit from this, I don't know what alternate universe you're living in, because this isn't good. Does it benefit the workers? No, those essential workers, they're stuck going to work with no pay. Now, how many workers in the United States in factories and stuff would say, oh, yeah, I'll go to work for no pay because I'm essential? Not very many. Not very many at all. So who does it benefit? Does it benefit the Democrats? No. Was what they were asking for unreasonable? Doesn't sound it. At least not what we've been told. And we're not getting any kind of answer out of the Republicans of why it was unreasonable. And as Brooke pointed out, you control the House, you control the Senate, you control the White House. If you can't get this done, that shows you can't govern. Plain and simple. You have no ability to govern. And especially something when we're talking about a continuing resolution. We're only talking a continuing resolution. And I think the continuing resolution was for what, 7 weeks, 8 weeks? That's all it was really giving it. Wasn't giving it a whole heck of a lot. So, we're at that stage now where you've got to start asking yourself, who does this benefit? And why is it being beneficial? And does it benefit the Republicans not to have that congresswoman from Arizona sworn in? Does it benefit Trump not to have that congresswoman sworn in? Maybe. And that's not a conspiracy theory. She's already said she'd vote for it. And she's vote number 218. So that's where we sit. And I'll tell you, consequences, there's going to be a lot of consequences for this. And I think because there's 49% that say stand their ground and it's Democrats, I think this is going to go longer than the one in 18?
Yeah.
Which was the longest, which was 35 days. I think this is going to go a lot longer because the constituency of the Democrats are saying, stand your damn ground on principle.
Oh, I agree with you, Mark. I think this is going to go for long. I don't know what long means in this context, but it's going to be longer than 35 days. And that makes me very concerned because if this benefits Trump, and I don't see that it really benefits anybody but Trump and the people in the White House and maybe the Republicans. I mean, the Congress still gets paid because Trump's going to do whatever he wants anyway. this just makes it easier for him to do whatever he wants without anything happening. But I have a question for you, Mark. Like you were saying before, it might be 2036 or something until all this gets back on track, or this being in the United States as far as our getting back to a normal rules law based life with everything now. What 20?
I don't know if we'll ever get back to that now.
Okay, that was my.
I was saying, I saw the meme on Facebook as I was, about to do grandchildren, which is the only thing I actually pay about any attention to Facebook. I'm glad that I'm old enough to remember when the United States was actually a decent country.
Mm.
And right now, I'm not seeing it. I mean, I just not seeing it, and it's our own fault. We've done this to ourselves. This is a self-inflicted wound, and these shutdowns. Yeah, there's been shutdowns before, absolutely. But it's always, and I've said this so many times. Back in our day, Democrats and Republicans would disagree, but they always agreed what the problem was. They just disagreed how to solve it. But they could sit down and agree that here was the problem. Yep, this is it. And they would be in total disagreement on how to solve it. So they would compromise. They understood they had to compromise. I'm sorry, but the most punchable face, Johnson, if you didn't know you didn't have the numbers to keep the government open, that's the time that you've got to sit down and start talking to the other side and compromising. That's what makes the system of government that we created work. The willingness to sit down and compromise. And he basically said, no, screw it. I'm not going to do that. I want everything. I want everything, or I'm going to take my bat and ball and go home.
Well, Trump told him not to. He said, don't talk to the other side. So he's got to listen to Trump.
But what really amazes me is John Thune. I mean, John Thune looks like an old man now. He always looked like a very youthful guy, right? He's been around for a really long time. He's always wanted this job. Mitch held on to it forever, and he had a fight off. Who was it, Cornyn, for this job, and now he has the job, and he's basically turning all the power that he has over to Trump. I don't understand that. This is your dream job, the culmination of your career in the Senate. You're, from what he seems like, as a good and decent man. And how does he allow this to happen? How does he allow Trump to do this? Johnson, I get. Johnson is completely a creature of Trump's creation. He's a totally compromised human being. He really would have been very happy to low-key his way, working backroom deals with people and backroom dealings with little boys his entire life, and not had a problem with it. But Trump grabbed him out of obscurity and put him in the top job, and he owes that to Trump, and he doesn't really have much of a choice but to do everything that Trump tells him. But John Thune, come on, man. This is it. You got your time in the sun, and this is how you're using it. You're going to blame Democrats for something that is so completely blatantly Trump's fault, Trump's dream, in fact, because he loves shutting down the government. He loves the idea that he can fire all these furloughed employees and never bring them back. He just loves the utter chaos of it all, because it helps him with his agenda, which is to steal as much money from the Treasury as he possibly can, or make money in as many underhanded ways as he possibly can, and move, and probably not move on. I mean, there's already a Trump 2028 red hat going around. And John Thune, you're going to allow this to happen on your watch? Man, you fought for this job. Do something with it now that you have it. Don't just squander it on this. Your name is going to go down like mud. You're shit to history as the Senate Majority Leader. You are nothing but garbage, and Trump is putting you there, and you're allowing it to happen without fighting back. This I cannot understand. I really can't.
You're right. Johnson was obscurity. He was totally in obscurity. Thune, not so much. But, I really do think, and for those people that want power, that say, gee, I've always wanted this job, and you're right, John Thune always wanted it, and Mitch McConnell held on to it for forever. He just seemed like he wouldn't ever go away. But once you get there, once you become the majority leader in the Senate or the Speaker of the House, I think it has a demoralizing effect on some people. You see people, and I'm not saying I agree with the policies. John Boehner. John Boehner never seemed like a terrible person. I mean, he just didn't, and he just got sick of it. Now, you could look at some of the other people that were speakers of the House, and you could say, yeah, they were pretty bad people. But this is not a place where somebody with conviction in these areas of power, especially in the Senate and in the House of Representatives, when you reach those areas of power, you can't be a person willing to stand up for your convictions in some cases, because you're just going to get beaten down. And you're not only going to get beaten down by the other side, you're going to get beaten down by your own side. Yeah, Thune could basically stand up, but how much support is he going to get? Because the basic rank and file is going to follow Trump right on down the line. So, you get yourself into this no-win position. And when you put yourself in these no-win positions, I think you get demoralized. I think that the idea of being in power and being able to make positive change, no matter what your policy is, you think it's positive change. I think it goes away because you realize that the system is rigged against people with decency. You have to deal with the devil, even though you're in power. You have to deal with those people that are in your caucus that disagree with you and are just as quick to bury you under the grass as the other side is. And it's a cutthroat business. I always said, politics, if you got a weak stomach, don't go in it. If you don't do it. Go into lion taming. It probably you probably have a better shot at this. I mean, anything. But politics is not something you want to get into if you don't have the ruthlessness, because good people asked to be ruthless, that's hard. That could be hard. Ruthless people to try to act like they are good but not be good, that's not so hard for them. They can pull the wool over your eyes. But to take a good person and say, listen, you've got to take all the morals and values and everything that you had before. You think you want to do good. Again, doesn't matter what your policies are. You believe your policies are good. You've worked it out in your mind why your policies are good and why you think it's a good idea. Throw it all away, because you're not going to get ahead. Sure as hell not going to get ahead in the Senate, and you're sure as hell not going to get ahead in the House of Representatives, because you're going to have the Marjorie Taylor Greens, you're going to have the Ted Cruzes, you're going to have the Lindsey Grahams, you're going to have the Lauren Boeberts, who would just as soon stick a knife in your back and bury you as they would, to look at you. And I'm always reminded of that ride. It shows Lindsey Graham. He was in a car, and they were talking to him about Joe Biden. This was before Biden became president. Lindsey Graham basically said he's the most decent human being I've ever met in my entire life. If you don't like Joe Biden, there's something wrong with him. Well, boy, after Biden became president, Biden's name was mud in Lindsey Graham's mind. And I'm sorry, friendships don't matter. Just like we've always talked about Trump and Putin. This is international politics. Nobody's your damn friend. Well, I got news for you. It's the same thing in American politics. Within American politics, nobody's your friend. They're just looking. You're very Machiavellian. Ends justify the means, and that's all there is to it. So
yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah.
So hopefully we've hit that through.
Well, what I want to know, is how long do you think this might last, and what happens if there is no end to it?
I'm not even going to predict. You know how bad we are. You know how bad we are at predicting.
In what way would this end?
I'm going to make this end tomorrow by predicting that it'll go more than the 35 days that it did last time.
Well, how
right?
does it end?
Well, it ends with a capitulation. It always ends with a capitulation.
Somebody capitulates. One side or the other. That's it.
Right. And it's more likely that once they furlough all the employees that they want to furlough and fire everybody that they want to fire. They're going to want to bring everybody back and start, doing whatever, rehiring the people that they fired. They've got to hire for that they need a government, right? So when they get their people down, look, I mean, Russ bought there's no secret about this. Project 2025 had a recruiting page where loyal Republicans, loyal Trumpists could apply for virtually any job in the government. If you're loyal enough, you can get the next big job in the government, because it doesn't matter whether you have any experience or competence for that job. Your loyalty is your qualification, and that's all we really care about. But then they got to get paid, and for that they need the government open. So that's probably how it's going to end. But I'm going to predict that it's going to be more than 35 days, and that should end it by 6:00 tonight.
Yeah.
which we're kind of hoping our predictions are really wrong. And remember, ICE is probably still going to get paid.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely.
The National Guard units, they're paid by the state, I believe.
Yeah.
So they're going to get paid. So all the stuff that's going on right now in your towns and cities and your states that you might be objectionable to, that's all still going to get paid. So congratulations. All right.
Yep.
Excellent.
So thank you. We hope that we answered that question, and we'll just have to get ourselves through this until it is over. And we want to thank all our listeners for spending time with us. We appreciate you very much. And if you are not yet subscribed on the platform of your choice, please do so. Subscribing is free, and we look forward to seeing you again next time on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Journal of Interdisciplinary Conflict Science. The JCIS is an open journal for upcoming scholars. The JCIS is currently accepting article submissions on an ongoing basis. The JCIS is a publication of NovaWorks, a scholarly depository at Nova Southeastern University. A link to the journal is in our description.